For one of the most influential draft lotteries that we've ever seen, which followed one of the craziest introductions of a general manager we've ever witnessed. It's 100% hockey with Millard and Shannon. How do you describe the week that has been for the Toronto Maple Leafs? And it's not over.
It's not over?
The week isn't over.
I
can't wait to see what the back half of the week brings.
I hope the news is over in Toronto, though. And I'll tell you what, I think the NHL and the commissioner have to hope the news is over in Toronto too, because it has distracted from the Stanley Cup Playoffs in Canada's largest hockey market. There has been little or no attention paid to what's going on the ice compared to what's going on in the boardroom and what's going on with the ping pong balls. So from that perspective, let's just hope the Maple Leafs are done their work, and now we have a chance to actually enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs, including Buffalo-Montreal, which, will drive Leaf fans crazy anyway because it's two of their biggest rivals.
I was there in 2016 when the draft lottery fell in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I was thinking about it last night. As badly as Toronto needed it then with Austin Matthews, is what happened this week with the draft lottery even more welcomed?
They needed some good news. There's no question they needed some good news because the reaction to the general manager and the executive senior advisor positions on Monday did not really go positively for the organization. So to get some good news, to get
really?
Yeah.
Did not go positively?
I'm just trying to be nice. Okay. It's Wednesday. I'm trying to be nice.
Okay, how close was it to a disaster?
Well, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't a disaster.
How many reallys in really bad?
4.
Okay, that's fair.
4. But last night with winning the draft lottery was probably 3 reallys as well. Really, really, really good. So it's 4-3 for the bads versus the goods. When you think,
so where is that franchise right now?
Well, it's about 25 miles that way. I don't. For a fan base that is as passionate as the Maple Leaf fan base, today's a better day than yesterday.
People were honking horns in Dundas Square. I saw that.
I was actually going to come on and I was going to sing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow." I really was, just because when you look at the reaction of social media, when you look at the reaction of the fan base after all the angst that occurred Monday and Tuesday for them to win the draft lottery was truly one of the great signs of what a fanatic fan base goes through. There was a phrase that I read a lot, and you can take it any way you want after last night's victory by the Maple Leafs in the draft lottery, whereas "you've got to be kidding me." And you can take it any way you want. "You've got to be kidding me," or "you've got to be kidding me."
I have a theory.
Okay.
This is regarding the hockey gods who control all this stuff.
You think, huh? Well, now is that the
absolutely.
same hockey? Is that the same hockey gods that John Cooper talked about puck luck?
Yep. Same ones.
And the ones that Andrei Vasilevsky says that there's no hockey gods and no puck luck. Same guy.
Yeah. Vasi. I don't like where you're going with that. You don't want to piss off the hockey gods. All right. Hockey atheist is what he is, but I don't want to get into religion here. But there's 4 or 5 of them, and they work. Okay,
so
here's my hockey god story.
Okay,
they're having so much fun with this Toronto Maple Leaf situation. They're just diving like it. It's theater for the hockey gods, and they said, "How do we make this better? Let's give them the first overall pick and put them in a position to select between the countrymen of Matt Sundin and the guy that's been projected to be the first overall pick all along. So Ivor Stenberg and Gavin McKenna. And make them choose and put them in a situation where it could be good or it could be bad. The hockey gods have just won up this thing in spectacular fashion.
It's funny you say hockey gods. There's a pizza chain in Canada that have run a whole campaign this year on hockey gods. So so the pizza chain thinks it's great too. And guess who owns the pizza chain?
Is that Boston Pizza?
A guy named Treliving.
Nice. I was not aware of that campaign.
So the hockey gods are dipping their toe into driving Maple Leaf fans crazy, and as of today, driving the other 31 teams and 31 fan bases crazy.
So what do you think of this whole? It was terrible. Really, 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 really bad.
Yeah.
And then it becomes really, really, really good with the draft lottery win.
Right.
And now the decision between Ivor and Gavin.
Okay. And so what's going to happen between now and the draft in Buffalo, by the way, which was the same place that Austin Matthews was drafted in Buffalo. We were all there, right? We're going to, it's going to be reopened. Gavin McKenna's incident in the State College, what went on in the Applebee's bar with somebody bullying his mother and him getting involved. So that's going to be regurgitated through the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then the question becomes for me.
I don't think that should be as much of a story. It should be.
No, but I didn't say it's going to, but it's going to come up. Right? It's going to come up. Whether we like
one guy's
it or
going to
not,
go play in the World Championship and had a great World Junior, and the other one's going to focus on the combine, and he's did not have the best World Junior.
No, and is not going to go to the World Championships.
Yeah.
So the question for me is, how obviously I think that is lots of Canadians want Gavin McKenna to be drafted first. But are we going to see something like we saw with Shane Wright? And we saw Shane Wright's stock not plummet, but drop.
Oh, it dropped to 4.
And Juraj Slafkovsky got picked first, and it's proved to be the right pick for Montreal. The other thing we should mention, Daren, because we're not a Toronto podcast, is we should just mention to the people of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, the people of Vancouver. Now, the good news is
they've never moved up in the draft lottery.
No.
Never moved up.
No. But then how many, I can't tell you how many times in the last 24 hours I've seen that damn wheel from 1970 when they were drafting either Gilbert Perreault or Dale Talon. So that's part of lore now. The good news for Vancouver is you're going to get a great player. I truly believe that in reading up about the top 5 or 6 players in this draft, you are going to get a quality player that can contribute. I mean, let's remember that, the first pick in certain drafts are good, but, 2, 3, 4. Cale Makar was a 4th pick in the draft. He's pretty damn good. So when you look at Keaton Verhoff, when you look at one of the two of McKenna or Stenberg, if they aren't taken by either the Maple Leafs or San Jose, there's going to be a really good player. Caleb Malhotra is part of that discussion too. So there are lots of ways to look at it, but the sympathy for Vancouver Canuck fans has to certainly be there.
Jimmy Rutherford makes it official that he's going to step aside.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've talked about this before, that there still is a role for Jim in the organization. It will not be as the president. It will not be as the general manager. But certainly he's a wise voice to have in the organization, at least for the next year, and we'll see what happens after that.
What are you hearing about the GM search?
I had heard earlier in the week that they were trying to make a decision by the end of the week, this week, so Friday.
Because there was a couple of new names in the mix. One of those has been deemed not to be involved. So,
yeah, here's the thing. I know the 3 guys that are on that so-called search committee, Rutherford, Doyle, Aquilini. I'm not sure they're leaking stuff out. I don't know who is. I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping it.
I'm not with you on that one.
I know you're not, but I'm respectful.
I think there's a couple of guys that can tend to talk on that committee of three.
No, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm being respectful. So I wonder, or are they throwing out like we saw in Toronto, trial balloons to get reaction?
Well, Toronto needed a couple of more balloons.
Well, there was. They went through a cycle. I think they had 3 balloons.
No, but the way it went over.
Oh no,
the introduction.
No, there's a difference between a balloon and a lead balloon, though.
What do you think of Simmons' question?
Oh, I think he had to ask it because he had written it for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you're a journalist, and Steve is a journalist, you have to be able to, stand in front of people and ask them a difficult question. How he phrased his follow-up was, on the edge. But at the same time, Steve Simmons was doing his job. I don't really have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with the way Keith replied. We did our due diligence. We talked to different people. That's the way it is. It's a hugely contentious issue, and you're going to get a hugely contentious reaction, and that's exactly what they got.
I like the question. I wouldn't have had the cojones to ask it that way, but maybe different phrasing.
His first question was, the 19 of 20.
Yeah.
And that was phrased well. It was the follow-up, I think, that created more of the controversy.
How does winning the draft lottery affect Auston Matthews, or how Toronto handles the next step? Reset?
Good
rebuild?
question. Good question. It might accelerate the rebuild, in my opinion.
And what about Matthews?
I think we're in a wait and see situation. I mean, Austin's under contract for 2 years. But he controls everything. Sure,
John.
he does. Yeah, he does. He does. But I don't. We haven't seen. He's holding his cards close to his chest, and I don't think we've really we heard that people around him are saying, yeah, he's wondering what's going on. But until he hears exactly what the plan is from Sundin and Chayka, I don't think that there can be a decision made. If they said, listen, we're going to, we've got Stenberg or McKenna, and we're going to be, going heavy into free agency, and we're going to find a defenseman, and we're going to do this and do that. And he may say, I'm in. He may say, I'm in. So until, that group gets together, that's the only way that things are going to get clarified when it comes to Auston Matthews. Here's my question. I'll ask you the question. You've got a first round pick. This guy. I don't think that he's in the same realm as Celebrini or Bedard or Matthews or McDavid. I don't think I don't think either player, Stenberg or McKenna, is a generational player. From what I've read, I mean, I'm not a draft guy, but I don't think he is.
I think there's a different narrative after playing college from the CHL. If he would have played the CHL this year with the points that he would have put up, it would have been
different,
more enthusiastic about being in that generational.
Okay, fair. But so the question becomes, who do you want to coach him? Who is and I think winning the draft lottery last night, particularly if they had lost the pick to Boston, winning the draft lottery last night, I think puts a bigger onus now on who is the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who will be the guiding light for your first pick overall? I think that's a bigger question today than it was 24 hours ago.
Yeah, and your Boston point, if they would have drafted out of the top 5, it went to the Bruins, right?
It went to the Bruins, yeah. So that I think the whole concept changes. Oh man, are we so like if Craig Berube? So I don't even if Craig Berube coaches next year. This is just my personal opinion. I don't think Craig Berube's the long-term coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs in a retool, rebuild, reconstruct, I
But
don't
if you're
think
not, is he?
That's right.
If you're just going to reset, let's go. He should be, because you hired him to do that.
You hired him to do that with a veteran team.
Yeah.
You hired him to do that with Mitch Marner in the lineup. You hired him to do that with with a much better defensive core than they had last year. The question becomes, with this change and the opportunity that picking first overall, I think the question has to be asked, does that change your philosophy of who coaches the Toronto Maple Leafs? Does it? Is Craig Berube good for young kids? Is he? Ask Jordan Kyrou. Ask Robert Thomas. Is he good for young players? I think it's a fair question.
What are you saying?
I don't think he is. I think they have to rethink the coaching situation now.
When do we become a sport where we couldn't hold young players accountable?
Like what? Give me an example.
I think it's unfair for Craig to say he's not good for young players when he.
No, but I've been. You've got to play young players. If you sit there and you have, the Leafs weren't very good the second half of the season. Play the young guys all the time. Play them all the time.
The coach is trying to win.
Then that's a dysfunction in the organization. Fix it.
It's a coaching DNA.
Well, but if you're part of if you're part of the long-term plan, you let it happen.
But coaches never know if they're long-term.
Well, you know what? That's
every coach is short-term.
John, maybe that's something that John Chayka can fix.
You're right in the middle of all this in the draft lottery. It was San Jose, which jumped up.
By the way,
they moved up the most.
Do you think that Mike Greer could smile? He moved up.
No, I know exactly what was going on. He couldn't believe it. He thought, "Is this a rehearsal? Are we just? Is this a practice thing? I'm not buying in. And nobody's going to put a hook in my mouth."
All the I would argue that they might have been the biggest winners in the draft.
Yes,
right? They are the biggest winners in the draft.
So in a 4-year span,
wow,
this is where the San Jose Sharks have picked in the top 15: a first, 2 seconds, a fourth, and 11th. You think that changes your franchise?
Well, Michael Misa, Macklin Celebrini, they got Chernisov, they got Sam Dickinson at 11.
Yeah,
Mike should be smiling.
Smith was added to the program.
William Eklund, William Eklund to that list. He should be smiling.
But again, he thought it was a rehearsal.
Come on, Mike.
That was a rehearsal. Doc Emrick's coming up. He's going to join us in just a little bit.
We don't have a problem getting to Doc to smile.
The famed play-by-play voice of the National Hockey League. And we recorded this earlier. One thing he did walk us through, which I always wondered and wasn't going to ask because I don't know him well enough, was he called games in Philadelphia and then he left Philadelphia, and why that occurred. But you think like a guy like Doc, he would have been a natural to just call games in Philly forever. And he actually does tell us that, among a bunch of other stories. It's
a fun listen, what it is. Anybody who does listen to the show on YouTube, just close your eyes for a couple of moments when Doc speaks, and enjoy the timbre in his voice, and enjoy the stories that only Doc can tell.
And the laugh.
You're right.
Infectious.
You're right, Daren.
Laugh.
You're right, Daren.
We need more laughs on this show.
Well, you do. I'm always in a good mood.
Well, maybe it's up to you to help me be in a better mood.
Oh, no, it's not. No. You should be in a better mood yourself. What are you talking about? You're living in a great city. You probably got a tea time this afternoon. It's
a game day.
Well, you got a tea time tomorrow then.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. So.
Doc Emrick coming up on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
Face Off Inside the NHL returns, taking you deeper behind the scenes than ever before. See it all from the star-studded Four Nations Face Off tournament.
Us against the world, boys.
To the adrenaline of the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
I'm scared of you guys.
With candid interviews and backstage access, experience the sacrifice, the rivalries, and the determination that define NHL greatness.
Just when I thought last year couldn't be topped, here we are.
A new season of Face Off Inside the NHL. Watch now only on Prime Video.
Boy, it's nice to be able to look at the Stanley Cup playoffs through the eyes and the voice and hear the voice of Doc Emrick, who's nice enough to join us on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. You miss it at all? I'm curious.
Oh, yes. I miss it at this time of year, but I don't miss the planes and the hotels. Mm-hmm. I just would like to be beamed up like Scotty and not Bowman, and wind up in one of the booths right at game time. That would be the best. But, as I got a little further along and was nearing the end of the 47th year, the travel was starting to wear on me. And so it seemed like a good time to stop. But I sit at home and enjoy these games immensely. It's wonderful hockey at this time of year. And was it Charles Barkley has said that there's nothing in the world like the Stanley Cup playoffs? And he actually has documented that he sneaks behind the curtain when he was working NBA games and watches hockey. So good for him.
Wait, what was your first final, Doc?
Wow. 87. It was the Flyers and the Oilers. Oh, sure. And J.J. Daigneault gave us one more trip out to Edmonton. And I don't know that Billy minds if I say this, but when he scored that goal, I looked at Billy and he had his thumb and forefinger moving back and forth like one more paycheck.
That's Billy Clement.
Yeah.
that is so good. Wasn't that the series that our pal Ron Hextall took a lumberjack attack on Kent Nilsson?
He did indeed, and in one of the all-time oddities, after they had suspended Boxcar Hospodar earlier, they decided that they would give him a suspension, but it would be tacked on to next fall. So he was still free to play. Chico Resch probably wouldn't have minded the spotlight as the backup, but Ron Hextall was so superior, and he was MVP of that series of the playoffs that year. But 6 Hall of Famers in one lineup, a little hard to beat that.
Yeah, but at least they took them to 7 games.
That's right.
In that series, rather than what they did 2 years earlier when the Oilers dominated in 5 in 1985.
I remember there were some members of the staff didn't want to shake hands with Mike Keenan.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one of the things I remember from it. But it's all a part of the lore at this time of year, which is very kind of you two guys to explore with me, because we all have experiences that we can draw on that go back in time a distance, and in some cases not that far.
Well, call me guilty of doing this because I think people miss your voice. And as you well know, some of us like sitting around and reminiscing about great games of the past and how much fun it is, because that's what, we could talk about, the first round of the playoffs. We can talk about, the 47 goals that were scored in game 1 of Colorado, Minnesota. But it really is the lore of the game and the Stanley Cup. that I think makes it much more fascinating than any other professional sports league in North America.
And the atmospheres in these cities. I've been asked a lot of times my favorite arena to be in, and it is the Bell Center. The location to broadcast, thanks to you and some of your cohorts, is the best there is. The lighting is bright. And when they open the doors, the standing room people come screaming through the lobby. And I always thought, gee, those are passionate fans. They don't sit on their hands. They're all over this. And it's been fun watching them. And I always appreciate anthems. And the man in Montreal is magnificent.
Hey, do you remember the Forum very much?
I sure do. It was the second best place that I worked. Boston Garden was another one because you were so close. But the Forum gave you a good bird's eye view. You were up and you were close. Up and away is bad. Up and close is fantastic. And the Forum, of course, had all of that lore. And they had the wooden kick plate down at the bottom of the boards. And you could see some of the splinters in it. And that's all a part of what made things different. But they also had wonderful hockey teams back then.
When you got into games, do any particular playoff nights stand out, whether it's lights going out or multiple overtimes or performances by individuals?
Yeah, there are several. We all remember, and perhaps you guys remember, working multiple overtime games. What was your longest, John?
Well, I was executive producer for Hockey Night, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Keith Primo.
Oh no! That one, that was 2 days worth of work.
Yeah, and that was, of course, when our old pal Herb Brooks was the coach of the Penguins. So
yes,
we had a little, and Ronnie Tugnut was the goalie of record for Pittsburgh in that series, and was remarkable. They went out to a 2-game lead, and the Flyers fought back and won.
It's there are a lot of fight backs and the wins these days, aren't there? Or at least series that seem like they're out of reach. And of course, around where I'm sitting, the Pistons stand out as of today because they came from 3-1 down. But the Forum. One of my memories about the Forum was not only Lanny McDonald's goal when I was working with you in 1989, but also the brawl that took place before a game even started. Back against Montreal in Game 6. And, it developed to the point where Mike Keenan assigned one of his assistant coaches to monitor the Canadians' Claude Lemieux shooting the puck into the vacant net at the end of the warm-up. And so counter measures had to be taken. And so that night, after the warm-up was over, Chico Resch turned the net around and pushed it against the boards so that Claude couldn't shoot the puck in. And then he left. And then I, with the great position I had, was looking across at the Canadiens' dressing room. And the door, of course, was corrugated. I couldn't see that. But I saw somebody peek around the corner after everybody had gone. And I thought, they're not giving up on this, are they? And sure enough, here came Claude Lemieux and his sidekick Shane Corson skating slowly out toward that net that was turned around. And I looked directly down below, and like a vulture, Boxcar was skating out with Chico Resch and swooping over toward where Claude was. The two of them got into a fight. And I have learned since that during the fight, Chico said, "Eddie, what are you doing?" And Claude said, "Yeah, Eddie, what are you doing?" Well, the scuffle continued on. And of course, then bench clearing brawls were not punished the way they are today. The locker rooms emptied and players from both teams streamed out onto the ice. The Flyers had dressed more than the usual limit during the warm-up, maybe anticipating this. But they had more men on the ice than than Montreal did. And there were some disheveled players. Doug Crossman was out there in flip-flops. I mean, not all of them were perfectly dressed, but they came out and showed the attitude anyway. And there were scraps all over the ice. And then eventually things got cleared and the players decided to go. There were no officials on the ice at the time, but they decided to go to their respective dressing rooms. And I later learned that the hierarchy of the league called Captain Dave Poulin and Captain Bob Gainey into a separate room and said, okay, what did you see? And the answer was simple: nothing. We weren't out there. They were all in their dressing rooms. So that was how the whole thing unfolded and how it started. And there was a player on Philadelphia, a rugged guy named Don Knockbauer, whose idol was Larry Robinson. And later on in the dressing room, after everything had quieted down, he said, my idol broke my nose. My idol broke my nose. But the league had decided that it didn't really look too good to have that going on. And so the next season, they implemented penalties. But we were doing the U.S. broadcast on ESPN. Mm-hmm. They were in Sports Center at the time. And Bill Clement got on the squawk back and said, come to us, come to us, come to us. And they refused. They continued Sports Center right to the end. And so we had to do a quick summary with some videotape fill on what had happened that people had missed. But such is live television, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've said that you should never meet your heroes, but I'd never heard of it from that angle.
Yeah, I know.
That the hero would break your nose. So
I'm not sure whether Don Knockbauer had ever met Larry Robinson before. But at any rate, he met him that night. There were several fights on the ice, but Larry Robinson later told me when he was with the Devils and I asked him about it and the Knockbauer situation, he said, it must have been a lucky punch. Typically, Larry Robinson being humble about it all.
Those were fascinating times because the league was, you were hoping that the league was up at the level with the NBA and the NFL, but it was still the NHL that we knew, Doc. It was still it was almost a mom and pop organization at that point.
It was. There was no, now you would need to go several pages in the league handbook to get all the pictures of the staff. And back then it was very simple. I mean, I think the broadcasting office in New York had 4 people. That's how different the league was. And there were some good things about it, but there also were some things that needed to be addressed, and that all has happened since. Ed Hospodar, by the way, was suspended for the rest of the playoffs.
and the goalie wasn't suspended for that one or for anything else he did in the playoffs and won the Conn Smythe Trophy.
What was it one of those?
Yeah, he was behind the corrugated gate, and Mike Keenan was standing in the way and wouldn't let him come out.
Yeah, wouldn't let him out, right?
Yes. It was one of those strange things. And when Dave Poulin got back in the dressing room from his meeting, Ed Hospodar had showered, had shaved, and had combed his hair. And he reportedly turned to Dave Poulin and said, I'm not playing tonight, am I? And Dave said, you weren't going to anyway.
Hey, what was Keenan like in those days? We all know Mike now, but what was Keenan on a day-to-day basis like those days? Because you were around the Flyers a bit as well.
Very, very intense. There have been a lot of intense coaches that you and I have met, but Mike was one of the most intense in terms of how focused he was during games, and he would make routine changes in goalies after a goal and things like that. But I remember going into his office at the Spectrum and sitting down in the chair next to his desk. And I said, "Coach, I hear I'm not playing again tonight. Why is that?" And perfectly in character, he went into a long sequence about how he had given me every chance in the world and that he couldn't make a go of it. And that even though my parents were in the building, I wasn't going to play that night. And he did it totally seriously. And I'm looking into his eyes and I'm thinking, oh my.
Do you remember that series in '87? I'm not sure you were around the building in Edmonton for Game 7, and Mike had requested that the Stanley Cup be put in their dressing room.
Please
Correct?
tell this story. It's one of the all-timers.
So Jimmy Gregory was senior VP of the league, and he was trying to herd cats with all of us. The networks wanted the cup. The Oilers wanted the cup. The Flyers wanted the cup. So so Jimmy Gregory said, "You're not getting the cup. You are not getting the cup. There's no way. We're not going to let you use it as a prop for a speech and this type of thing." So Mike said, "Okay, if I can't have the cup, give me the box." so
I
they
never
wheeled
heard that.
They wheeled the empty box into the Flyer dressing room. And he went through his histrionics of, "Gentlemen, inside that box is the Holy Grail, is the Stanley Cup. We can't see it and we can't touch it until we win it." Typical Mike Keenan fashion.
Oh, I know. He used the cup in the 5th game because it was. Can you verify the story? Because I asked him about it and someone interrupted him before I could get an answer. Was the cup out in Glenn Sather's truck?
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
No, it was not in Glenn Sather's truck.
That was one of the, and I asked him about it, and then somebody came up and bothered both of us, and I never got the answer, but he did have a smile on his face. So I think he appreciated the rumor anyway.
So, Doc, those are the days of Lefty Reed. So Lefty was the curator of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and Lefty by himself would traipse around North America with the Stanley Cup and the Conn Smythe Trophy, that's similar to what Phil Pritchard and the boys do now, but with a lot less security than exists for the NHL today. I mean, it's not like 2015, and the three of us were in the building in 2015 when the Stanley Cup got won by the Chicago Blackhawks, and then the cup didn't show up. We waited, right?
And waited.
And the Blackhawks were on the ice and they'd celebrated. And then there's that lull after you've congratulated everybody on your team. And you think, well, it's going to bring it out sometime. Well, that wasn't the case at that time. And of course, John, you can elaborate on this because you were there firsthand. The league had a tradition of bringing the cup into the arena during the game so that we could get lots of video of it and show it live when they were taking it out of the case. Well, the keepers of the cup were staying out near O'Hare Airport. And that night there was a deluge of rain, lightning and thunder, and some tornadoes which touched down in the area. Major expressways were closed. And so the keepers of the cup had to use local routes, some of which were flooded and some of which were governed by stoplights. So it was taking forever. You can pick it up from there, John.
Well, it was, I was standing beside Millard up in the upper balcony, right? We were doing stuff for Sportsnet at that point. Because you're right, Phil Pritchard and the guys from the Hall, it wasn't a league rule. The Hall said, we're superstitious. We don't want it in the building until the second intermission. And so I think it was about 45 minutes before
it was a long time.
Yes.
It was a long time.
And everybody's screaming for it.
Yeah, we had, you probably had the same instructions. We were instructed by the league to not mention that it wasn't there until
low key.
2 minutes to go. And at that point, our producer, Sam Flood, said, "We're breaking the embargo. Tell people there's no cup here." Yeah. And so we did. But it was it was one of those strange things that happened on a night with lightning, thunder, tornadoes, and rain and floods and everything else. So thereafter, and this has been verified to me by the commissioner, thereafter, the cup needs to be in the arena at game time. That was a change that was made then.
That is an
But
edict
had that night not happened, it would still be under the old rules, because nobody really even knew, other than for the traditional part of it, that that process was taking place.
And the Conn Smythe was in the wagon as well.
Yes.
So were there 2 trophies that had to be hurried down the hall and one at a time brought onto the ice. But that was the last cup the Blackhawks had won. Oddly enough, the last time they won in Chicago was 77 years earlier in 1938. And because they were in a series with Toronto, and Chicago was such an underdog, Frank Calder, the president of the NHL, left the cup in Toronto and anticipating there would be one more game back there. There wasn't. And so the Blackhawks did not get the cup that night.
Did not know that.
They shipped it on later on. But in 34, there was a picture of the team on the ice at Chicago Stadium holding the cup. But in 38, none was to be found unless you went back to Ontario.
John, how did you handle producing that moment?
I was waiting for Millard. I was waiting for that. This is what I'm up against every week, Mike. This is what I'm up against every week.
It sounds like great fun, and that's
what is
the things I miss.
There's a line. Somebody says I'm older than dirt. Who is that? Somebody says that. That's the feeling I get when I work with Millard. So,
well, let's take a break. We'll reconvene, and you and I will hash things out, and we'll hug, and we'll come back with more from Doc Emrick.
I'm not sure we will. I am not sure we will.
Well, if I'm not coming back, I want to say I love you, Doc. If I do come back, we'll continue the conversation right after this on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
I thought about it, John. I'm sorry for taking that cheap shot at you.
Cheap shot. I tell you what. And I'm not even the oldest guy on the call here. That's an amazing thing. So
no, that's true. That's true.
But Doc and I did some finals together. We had a
How
good
many
time.
do you guys do work together?
Oh gosh, four.
I was going to say 4.
Yeah, 4 for Sports Channel America, and then by the time I got to join the league in 2006, Doc was the star of NBC. So versus an NBC.
But you were there for all of them, representing the league.
Yeah. So we were there. We were there come hell or high water, and it was high water.
Who had veto power between the two of you?
The Doc's the star. Doc is the
Who
star.
had veto power?
That if that were ever true, it was once upon a time. But the good thing is that John and I were the same in that we would go to the morning skate and show up early and sniff around for anything we could find. And when John was producing for us, he would find out several things that none of us that were on the air knew. But by the time we got to the studio, he would have tape of it. And he would send somebody out to gather tape, usually with the cooperation of an equipment manager. I'll never forget co-producing with John. I was representing Philadelphia. John was doing Hockey Night in Canada. The Flyers were playing in Vancouver. And there were so many injuries that John came up with a panel that had the list of injuries, and over the panel was a hockey stick crossed with a crutch. And I thought, that's brilliant.
We crossed our paths crossed a lot in the 80s, particularly when the Flyers were so dominant. Even though they didn't win, they were still a dominant franchise.
Yes.
You know, my first final was 1980, Islanders Flyers, and Pat was the coach. And then you were also, there was also a time when you moved in, or you didn't move, but you did so much work for Madison Square Garden. And we'd go to the morning skate, and then Doc would disappear, and then I'd look up into the broadcast area, and there's Doc already up there. It's like 12:15.
The broadcast area, the broadcast area at Madison Square Garden was in Brooklyn. It was so far away. I paced it off, and Bobby Thompson's home run in 1951 was hit at a lesser height and a lesser distance than the broadcast booth at Madison Square Garden was from the bench. It was that bad. But they knew best. It cost $3 billion to change it, but they were able to do that through all kinds of renovations. And now it's one of the better places.
Oh, yeah.
But back then, it was, I remember riding into New York in my first season. It was the fall of 1980, and I was riding up to Madison Square Garden for a preseason game with Gene Hart and Bobby Taylor. And I said, "What's the broadcast booth like at Madison Square Garden?" He said, "You're going to hate it, Doc," because it was so far away. And the Rangers at that time were wearing white with a 4-inch number that was two-toned, which made it even harder to pick up a number. So the far winger was almost anybody's guess.
Did anybody run jersey design by you as the preeminent play-by-play guy?
No.
Never.
Not even close. I envisioned that some vice president was sitting behind his desk and had the jersey on a hanger and told the guy and the equipment guy, "Looks pretty good to me." And that was, we had no collection like that. And even some of the outdoor games,
yes,
there are occasions where you still work off a 4-inch number. And in some occasions, they've made them larger on the sleeve. But at Wrigley Field in Chicago for Detroit and Chicago, you know this, John, right? Detroit didn't have a sleeve number. Good luck. And of course, we were close to the rink. But at that time, that was one of the rare ones that I missed because of a throat infection. And so the great and late Dave Strader stood in and did a wonderful job. I was back home by the time it started, but I thought to myself, I feel sorry for that guy because he can't work off sleeve numbers at all.
How would you call a goal?
They knew best.
How would you call a goal if you didn't know who scored it? If you weren't sure.
You would, well, of course you would yell score. And if it was a home goal, you had the crowd to work with.
Good.
And then they would either tell you in the truck or they would do a replay that would show who scored it. And so you really didn't get burned too badly most times. But you always remembered at the end of the game, and John used to talk to me about this when he produced, you always remembered the ones that you didn't have. And,
like a goalie.
Yeah. And he used to say, Doc, you're your own worst enemy sometimes. Because it's, you can't be perfect at this. But the more you try for perfection, the more strident and sterile it sounds. So you just have to be yourself and realize, okay, blew that one.
Actually, that brings up a fascinating question. I think it's fascinating. Do you call overtime differently than a regular period?
Yes, and that probably goes more to the NBC influence than it did in prior years when you and I worked together, because they felt that any Game 7, any overtime, any Olympics had to be made simplistically exciting for fans. In other words, you didn't overtalk. You didn't wind up describing more than you really needed to because they could watch that. And you didn't want people to turn it off from the amount of verbiage. I had some voice lessons from a woman named Lillian Wilder in New York. At this time, I was doing Rangers radio with Sal Messina. And she would strike a key on the piano, and then I would have to sing that note. That was some of the exercise that I had. But anyway, I brought along for our first session one of my audio tapes from the Rangers and Vancouver. And she started it, and about 20 seconds later, she shut it off. A very loud click in my cassette recorder. And she said, "You got it all in, didn't you?" And I thought, gee, I'm getting a compliment the first session. That wasn't a compliment. She said, the human ear can take in so much, but the human brain can't process it. You've got to talk less. So that was one of my lessons. It didn't necessarily fit that I talked less all the time, but I sure talked less after that lesson for quite a while.
Every play-by-play guy in the world, Doc, every play-by-play guy, the first 5 minutes of the first period wants to get every ounce of information out there.
You're right.
And over the years, I still remember, and my favorite one was the years that I worked with John Davidson. And about 5 minutes into the first period, John Davidson would hit the key and talk back in my ear. He'd say, "Well, there goes my 12 stories."
John was the most fascinating guy to watch gather information. He would have 3 yellow-lined legal-size sheets of paper that he would fold up so that they were only about 2 inches wide. And so he had 3 of those, one for the home team, one for the visitors, and one for general information about the league or anything else he picked up that didn't fit. And those were folded up, and he would stand in the hallway with one foot against the wall, and people would come up to him. He didn't have to search anybody out. The world came to him. And as soon as they would leave, he would dart around the corner out of view and make feverish notes on these 3 pieces of paper. And then he would tuck them in his jacket pocket. And when he got upstairs next to me in the booth, he would take all 3 out, put them right in front of himself, and say, "I'm ready." And he was. He was.
Did you ever find yourself compete with other play-by-play guys?
No, I'm always amazed at how good they are. And no, I never wound up doing that. I was always envious of the jobs that they would get if it was one that I did, but it only went that far. Usually you would say, okay, they got it for a reason, and you would recognize that it's not your turn yet. So I would sit at home and watch it, and you watch differently at home, I think, when you're working than when you're not, and you're trying to just pick up names and numbers off the screen. Whereas now that I'm retired, I don't care. And if a game is 6-2, I'm changing channels. It's just great.
Well, what made a good analyst to work with?
Somebody that let you work. And that's not always easy to say for reasons John just mentioned, because you would have a lot that you wanted to get in, and the guy that you were working with did too. And Gene Hart used to always tell me, remember, there's a reason that guy is there, and you can't do it all. And so as a result, it went both ways. And if somebody would let you work, if you knew you had a story coming up and you told the truck, a good guy would back out and let you do it. And the guys I worked with always did. There might have been some growing pains with it at the first couple of times until we got a rhythm together. But yeah, you just were happy to have somebody that was not talking over you. And whenever Eddie Olczyk did that, he always apologized immediately on the air, because it happened so rarely. He had a good grasp of my rhythm. Rather, maybe it's from all those horse races that he watched, but he had a great grasp of that. So as I said, I've worked with a lot of wonderful guys.
It's funny though. You mentioned Gene Hart. We don't have characters like that in the game anymore. I don't think even on a regional basis.
I think there's a reason for that, but you have your own theory, so let's hear yours.
No, I other than I think people want. I think the system shifted, and by the way, I'm probably guilty of creating.
I was just going to say, I think there's too many bosses. And I'm serious in that. No tongue in cheek. No offense intended, John.
No, because when I I worked with somebody that Doc knew very well, the great Ralph Mellenby, and I think Ralph was the greatest hockey producer ever, but there was a real shift in the world at that point that Ralph started, was that he was in charge and the announcers reported to him. It wasn't the announcers doing their thing and then the producer / director filling the gaps. And so the hierarchy changed in so many ways. I don't know whether that's fair or not, Doc.
No, it is. It is, because there was a shift. You could be as colorful as the world and do your job, and people loved you for it, especially if you were the hometown announcer. But as time passed, there was that influence that you mentioned, and somebody coming on that was different, was new, wasn't about to start being colorful. It was safer to not do that. And so as a result, you got a lot of very qualified people, but a lot of times the call was not like it used to be, where you would just do whatever you thought of and make it work. It was one of those occasions where gradually there was a shift that John mentioned, and announcers started to be more careful.
Well, and the good announcers influenced the next generation of announcers. And instead of being, I want to be quirky, it's like, I want to sound like Doc. And so we got a lot of people that started to sound like you along the way, and maybe slight differences. But the more your games were available on satellite and the internet, everything, we got a little more streamlined.
I think, too, I've noticed this in baseball. The announcers I grew up listening to were all that way. Jack Quinlan was one of the best I heard, and he was only the Cubs announcer for a few seasons before he was killed in a car accident. Harry Carey was nuts. And you always had the characters that were doing baseball, too. But that got to be more safe as time passed. And you had the feeling that all of the new announcers would sound the same, right. Not to any detriment to them, but they would sound the same. They would do the game the same. And if there was any color, it was in the voice of the analyst, not the play-by-play guy.
By the way, you just reminded me of something. One of the first games I ever did, entry-level job, Hockey Night in Canada, was to deliver the out-of-town scores to the visiting Pittsburgh Penguins play-by-play guy. You know who it was that year in 1977?
The Gunner?
Bob Prince. Yep.
The Gunner.
Yeah.
How was it? How was he?
Awful.
I never heard him.
Horrendous. He was horrendous. I'll tell you one quick story. One of my favorites of that time was, and I was writing down the names of the goal scorers, and I was to give it to Bob, and Vancouver had scored a goal, and the goal was scored by Dennis Ververgaert.
Ah.
And he looked at that name and said, "How do you say that? How do you say it?" I said, "Ververgaert." He says, "Beauregard." Dennis Beauregard has scored for Vancouver. And every time I see Dennis Beauregard or hear of Dennis Beauregard, I now think of Bob Prince calling him Dennis Beauregard. So
You undoubtedly heard the story of him diving off the second floor of the Chase Hotel in St. Louis into the pool. He used to do strange things just because he wanted to be colorful, and he liked to entertain the players. He did that, and he was a swimmer. And so it wasn't like he was going into the deep end with his eyes closed. I mean, he pulled it off. And there were other stories, some of which are probably not true, that are told about Bob during his broadcasting the Pirates. And that was for a long time. And I sure missed him when he left.
Yeah. Hey, so when you were a kid, you obviously listening to the Pirates, and where you were growing up, you had the Red Wings not far away. You had the Blackhawks not far away. So that was Bob Pettit in Chicago. Sorry, Lloyd Pettit. Bob Pettit's the basketball player. Lloyd Pettit in Chicago, and Bruce Martin. Who was it in? Who was it in Detroit?
Yeah,
it was Bud Lynch. Bud Lynch.
Yeah. Bud was doing it then, and then Bruce took over later on. But there were some golden voices. I used to be able to hear WABC or WNBC in New York, and Marv would be doing the games with Sal Messina. And Bob Wilson was a wonderful radio voice. He had all of these deep pipes. And I remember asking him in the booth at the Spectrum in Philadelphia my first year. I said, Bob, how do you get such a great voice? And he said, bourbon and Lucky Strike cigarettes. Okay, so there's the honest answer. And then, of course, he laughed.
Yeah, that's right. I first heard of Mike Emrick because I was working at the parent company of Hockey Night in Canada, and one of our producers got sent to Portland, Maine, to produce the first ever AHL game involving the Maine Mariners, because Mr. Snyder had hired Hockey Night in Canada to produce the game, and all I heard was the great things about Mike Emrick.
Well, that's nice to hear after all this time, because that was a very memorable night for all of us in New England, because the team hadn't been on television before, and they were making their first appearance. There was one game that was done the following year. I believe it would have been when the WHA was still going. And it was sponsored by Public Television in Lewiston. And they were the sponsors. It was a preseason game. And Gordy and Mark and Marty all played for the Whalers. And I was in awe, of course. And we didn't win the game. We did win the game on opening night, but we didn't win that game. And that was back at a time before it had been conditioned to me to not say we.
Mr. Snyder, you had a great relationship with him, didn't you?
Yeah, well, over time, and then not, and then back again. You had mentioned Gene Hart earlier. He had been doing the Flyers for a long time and had been with them during their Stanley Cup years. And he and I had different styles. And I think Mr. Snyder was disappointed that I didn't have the style of promoting the Flyers and talking about a team that missed the playoffs 4 of the 5 years I was there. So there were a lot of real empty nights. And so when the 5th year came around, I thought I was going to be renewed because I had been told that by other people. And it went into July. And finally, my agent, Art Kaminsky, got in touch with the Flyers. It wasn't Ed Snyder, but we were told that they weren't going to make an offer. So now it's July, and I'm trying to find work in hockey for another year. And fortunately, Gary Thorne kept a very busy schedule with the New Jersey Devils and baseball. And he had missed a couple of playoff games in prior years because of his baseball schedule. And so as a result, they wanted somebody who would be there for all the games. And as it turned out, I was available, so I was the guy. Gary and I used to see each other in airports, but we were never in the same arena at the same time because we were working for other national broadcasters. And in many cases, it was the same one. But he would be assigned one night and I would be assigned the other. But what a wonderful voice that guy has.
Mm.
Did you ever, because we don't look at our own voices the same as others generally, but when did you become aware that you had a distinctive cadence to you?
Shortly after I'd finished those sessions with Lillian Wilder, because she had worked with George H.W. Bush and with Oprah Winfrey, and she'd had a lot of important clients. How I got on her list, I will never know. But anyway, after I'd finished that, I heard from the league, and I think there were a couple of people that were helping me with the people that made decisions at ESPN. I had heard from the league that I was going to get a call to do one game. And it was an ESPN game in 1986. Murray Bannerman was in goal. It was Chicago hosting at Chicago Stadium, the St. Louis Blues. And I got to work that night, my very first national telecast with Mickey Redmond. Mm-hmm. And it was exciting. It was great fun. I was thrilled with the anthem, as I always am in Chicago, and it just went on from there. Blackhawks won. I can't remember the St. Louis goalie, but it was Murray Bannerman, I remember, in Chicago. So that was my first, and it was my last until later on in the spring when they needed somebody extra to fill in the following year because Ken Wilson had been doing baseball as well. And there was a guy with a wonderful voice. And so he had so many games scheduled that conflicted that they wanted to get somebody for the playoffs in 86 that would be able to be there all the time. And so one thing I was punctual and there.
2 for 2.
Yes.
Before we go, generally I would come off our wrap up and ask John, what are the greatest things about working with Doc? But because we've got you here, I'd love to hear John just relate what the experience was like working with Doc and maybe a little bit back from your way. Doc.
I have one memory from Calgary in 1989. But I'll get to that after John's done.
Well,
you don't need to
go
long, John.
Don't worry.
Very good.
First of all, the repartee, Doc was a great team player. So anytime you worked with Doc, there was a real belief that he wasn't going to be selfish. He was going to worry about everybody else. He would worry about the broadcast. He was a good storyteller. I had done some deals with Doc in the early 80s to produce features for us that ran in Western Canada only because I was running Western Canada. I was running Western Canada, and we needed content all the time. And Mike did. I think we contracted to do 10 features a year for 3 or 4 years, and it was great stuff. And a lot of it was based on Doc's wit and wisdom of the game. You know, little vignettes about fancy, so far ahead of its time. When you think about these shows that are the top 10 lists, we were doing that kind of stuff in 81 and 82. What I would say about Doc was that he made it passionately fun to work because he loved the game as much as we did. And that was really what was exciting. And then he loved the art. You know, we love to sit and talk about the art of broadcasting. So if you can sit and talk about the art of hockey and the art of broadcasting, you can work with each other all the time. And
what does that mean, the art of broadcasting?
Well, about literally talking about, hey, did you hear that what did you like about Harry Carey? What did you like about Lloyd Pettit? I mean, all of the stuff, I used to, for instance, I would always joke with Bob Cole that, if Foster Hewitt applied for a job in 1993, he wouldn't get hired. He wouldn't be good enough. And that, of course, that would drive Bob Cole nuts, which is what I was trying to do. But we had a really strong relationship. We worked with some good people, Bill Clement, John Davidson. We worked with strong production people, and there was nobody saying, "Well, I'm the star," and there was nobody saying what we were trying to do is work together to do good television, and that's the part that I admired working with Mike so much about.
The art of broadcasting, working with John, was always beginning with the tease. And one afternoon in Calgary, I came back to the rink way early. And John said, why don't we voice this now? And he had several elements that had to be coordinated because this was in the day before digital. And you had to have the elements on tape that you could drop in. And we probably did that tease 7 or 8 times before we all got it perfect. And when it aired, it was outstanding. But John always said, we're doing the tease for the truck because a lot of people that are out watching don't care. And I've thought of that, but I also thought, yeah, but the ones that do are going to really get a good one.
Yeah, good kick out of it, yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. Recue Blue.
Well,
is that still your license plate?
No, but I should have brought it out. That was my plate in Alberta. I still have it. I still have it here somewhere in the basement. The one here's my favorite tease of all time, Doc, was one of the ones we did in the Stanley Cup Final in Boston in 1980. What would it be? 88. 88.
Yes.
Game 2 where we had no money. We were doing Sports Channel America. We had no money. But I paid a cab driver, and I had a cab driver, I think he was from Ukraine, and we did it as a POV where the cab driver took us into the cab and then told us all about what happened the night before when the lights went out. And this guy with his Ukrainian accent, and then Peter Klima scored. Hey, enjoy the game.
So it was a cab driver? It was a cab driver.
It was a real cab driver. Oh yeah. Oh no, real cab driver. We weren't going to Central Casting. We went out to Causeway Street and found a cab driver, and we paid him $60.
There was a Bruins public address announcer named Joel Perlmutter. And Joel told me after the lights went out, Craig Simpson scored, and then the lights went out. The game was tied. And he said, the Bruins actually won that shortened game. I said, how's that? It was 3-3. He said, it says that the goal does not get put on the sheet until the public address announcer announces who got it. And the power went out before I could do it. So it was his argument that the Bruins actually won the game that night. What a night.
That was the only way they were going to win that series.
No, that's right. That's right. And I asked, after the statute of limitations ran out, John, and I don't want to postpone your conclusion. Years later, I asked Nate Greenberg, who knows all these things and was PR guy at the time for the Bruins. I said, so the game was not finished. Game 4 was not finished. And they moved the series on to Edmonton for what turned out to be Game 5, but was really Game 4, and they swept them. What happened to all the money taken on ticket sales for Game 4? He said, nothing. Oh, the statute of limitations, I think, is gone out by now.
It is. Hey, Doc, this has been a treat.
It has been for me too. And Mr. Millard, I will say that in due respect. It's been wonderful being on with you because you have a great laugh and you have a wonderful appreciation of the sport too. And if you've been standing next to John in 2015, you have to have.
2015, I'll tell you this. We do our hit before the game, and then they would say, I would throw it back. And he'd say, "Why did you throw it back?" I said, "Well, just it felt like the time to throw back to the studio." He's like, "Did they tell you?" I'm like, "No." It's like, "Keep talking." So we just kept on talking until the producer was screaming in my ear. I'm like, I'm not going to disagree with him. So that's another memory from 2025.
Good point. Oh, this has been wonderful fun. Thank you so much.
Beautiful hearing you again and hearing these great stories from your time in the booth. Doc Emrick with us on 100% Hockey. Back with more right after this.
Face Off Inside the NHL returns, taking you deeper behind the scenes than ever before. See it all from the star-studded Four Nations Face Off tournament
Us against the world, boys.
to the adrenaline of the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
I'm scared of you guys.
With candid interviews and backstage access, experience the sacrifice, the rivalries, and the determination that define NHL greatness.
Just when I thought last year couldn't be topped, here we are.
A new season of Face Off Inside the NHL. Watch now only on Prime Video.
That was pretty cool for all of us. You, me, the listener, the viewer. That was neat. And Doc doesn't do a lot of those.
No, it took me about 4 weeks to cajole him into doing it because Doc is so so much a perfectionist that he was concerned that we might ask him about this year's playoffs, and he doesn't watch the playoffs the way he has in the years that he's worked them. So
he watches as a fan.
He watches now as a fan.
Back and
so
forth.
He doesn't. Yeah. So when he doesn't
not
like
taking
what he
notes,
sees,
he's not. Yeah.
Well, and he can change the channel. So
yeah.
So it was great to hear his voice. It was great to talk to him. We've been friends for a long time, and I'm just glad he took some time out of his busy day to be with us. And the fascination, and you asked him this, there are a ton of, and I say this with a great deal of respect, there's a ton of Doc clones doing play-by-play in the NHL.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate compliment, right? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So that's the influence that Mike Emrick still has on the game of hockey.
You can hear it. I wish that a lot of those people would throw in more of their own personalities. I understand the foundation, but and I've been accused of following along in the footsteps of people and taking on too many there.
Who do you follow?
John Shannon.
No, you have not. You have not followed in my footsteps at all.
I interrupt all the time.
You've been talking to my wife again.
For Doc, I didn't know he took voice lessons. Now I wonder.
Neither did I.
What?
So that's a good story.
Like, how many people are thinking, "Geez, I got to do that"? But the voice coach stopping the cassette player, yes, and saying, "You got it all in, didn't you?"
Yeah. Well, and that but that's a. When you're on the air for 3 hours, you've got 3 hours to tell stories. Uh-huh. You don't have to prove yourself in the first 7 minutes. And there are too many play-by-play guys that try to prove themselves in the first 7 minutes. But they're so wired and so hyped, and they've got so much information, they got to get it out there. Mm-hmm. Take your time.
There's got to be more baseball in hockey play-by-play, where you can be patient with everything throughout.
Well,
because baseball, I love the soothingness of a baseball broadcast.
Yeah, but baseball allows for that because there's and now that there's a clock in baseball, there that there are moments for you to tell a story. That's not necessarily the case in our game. That isn't necessarily the case. And in my opinion, and we didn't get into this with Doc because I think that I know where he would sit, but he talked a little bit about it. We're getting too much conversation during play-by-play. We're getting
I agree with that.
Far too much conversation.
Yeah.
And so
where I hear it more is on radio.
Yeah, but radio's theater of the mind.
Yeah, but on radio, I want to know where the puck is.
Yeah,
and when you start telling stories,
I hear it
when I'm driving around listening to NHL radio.
I hear it far too much on television. Far too much on television. And here's the deal.
And that's pressure on the analysts to make sure that they're out. Like that's hard because then you're stepping on goals, and it's really not your fault because you got into a conversation in the booth.
Here's the one thing to remember. And actually, it's two things. The most important thing is I want to hear the guy say, in the proper time, he shoots, he scores. Okay? I want to hear he shoots, he scores. Because that tells you there's a puck in the net. Okay? But if both guys are talking about, what they had for dinner and wasn't Fonzie great on happy days, they are not doing their job. They're talking to themselves. They are not doing their job. And there's too many guys that it becomes a competition. I know more than you do. I remember I used to send notes to guys who did this and they're friends of mine, and I would send them a text at the end of the night. I said, guys, I'm exhausted listening to you. Exhausted. Because you don't have to give me all that stuff in order to be effective. Remember who you're doing this for.
But isn't the analyst's job to tell stories and provide insight to the athletes? And the play-by-play guy call the game? Like a host.
Call the game. You're right, call the game. The first job of an analyst is why. Why does it happen? What is going to happen? And why did or it didn't happen? That's it.
So how often should you sprinkle in a story? One every 5 minutes? One every...
By the way, if the game is really good, if the game's a wire to wire, coast to coast, brilliant game, none. Because the game carries itself. Your stories are there to help you get through the lulls. If you have a great game, if you have electric action, you don't need many stories.
Just leave it up to the hockey gods.
Leave it up to the hockey gods. You'll have time. We designed this. So just as an aside, when I was at the league, there was a real complaint that the fast face-off system was ruining hockey, and that announcers didn't have time to tell stories. So we reconstructed the commercial breaks to allow for the teams to have 20 to 30 seconds coming out of the commercial to tell stories. So that means, in theory, there are 9 times within a game to tell a story. Now what's happened is the broadcasters are abusing that to a point. And so I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced, that announcers know how to tell stories anymore as much as they should. And I'm not sure that announcers want to tell stories as much as they should. I think that they'd rather just sit there and watch the game and tell us what happened. That's not what broadcasting is all about. That's not what this game is all about.
You should do a storytelling seminar at the draft. There's the coaches seminar.
Yeah.
Storytelling seminar with John Shannon.
Okay, I'll just say one thing, okay? Buy the book. Or
you could include it. You can include it in the registration fee, and just give it out to people.
That's right. So the fee just went up by $40.
Fine, that's good.
Storytelling 101, baby.
And we could just have it at the Tim Hortons.
Now it's not me. It's we.
Well, I'm a consultant now. I'm planning this whole thing.
Oh,
I'm getting a fee.
by the way, like for the last 45 minutes with Doc Emrick, that's all we did was tell stories. Mm-hmm. And that's what this business is about. But why first, then tell me a story?
Think about it. And that's what I'm telling to the broadcasters who, a lot of broadcasters have listened to this episode because of Doc Emrick. A lot of broadcasters have downloaded this 100% hockey with Millard and Shannon episode. John just gave you the bonus part of it.
No, because everybody thinks I'm an old codger now.
Well, I was just going to say, they're all driving down the road going, I know better than that.
That's right. That's right. Except when they get the text from me.
Tell me where the puck is.
No, that's
Tell me where the puck goes in the net.
Right.
No, I'm saying when I listen to a broadcast, tell me where the puck is. Tell me what goes in the net. Okay. And then in between the whistles, the analyst, have at her.
Okay, so I wasn't going to do this, but you got me going now. So here's my latest pet peeve. And you listen. You listen to former players that are analysts, okay? If they tell you shots on goal, if they tell you time on the clock, if they tell you the crowd's going crazy, ask yourself the question. You actually need to be a former player to tell me that? I could do that job. I can't do the job of what it feels like to be a player on the ice. These guys are filling time. They're filling time. It's dare I say it, it's crap. Don't fill time. Tell me what you know. I can see the crowd going crazy, but if you have to choose between what is being said and who says it, the play-by-play guy should be doing time. The play-by-play guy should be doing shots on goal. The play-by-play guy should be doing the stats, not the analyst who played the game and is supposed to be telling us why.
Because that's why they're there. Otherwise, when a person who's in the booth who didn't play, people go, oh, what's he going to tell us? He didn't play.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. See, this is why we're in connection with the seminar that we're going to do. We're co-producers of the Shannon Storytelling Seminar.
Oh, my God.
You need somebody with you.
I can think of better.
Enjoy the hockey. We'll be back with you next time. 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.